What if I told you the Chupacabra emerged in 1995 Puerto Rico after farmers discovered 8 bloodless sheep with triangular puncture wounds? Within months, reports spread across the Caribbean, Latin America, and the United States. It takes 2 forms: reptilian with spines and red eyes in Puerto Rico, or a hairless, dog-like creature in the southwest. Scientists identify these canine specimens as diseased coyotes, but believers point to the precise wounds and bloodless carcasses. This modern monster thrives digitally, a predator feeding on livestock and our collective fears. The night air in Puerto Rico presses heavy, as though it carries secrets too old and too dreadful to speak aloud. In March of 1995, silence is shattered in a small corral. 8 sheep lie stretched upon the earth, their bodies still warm, their eyes glazed with the shock of sudden death. 3 puncture wounds stain each chest, arranged like the inverted points of a dark trinity. Not a drop of blood remains. Farmers gather at the fence, lanterns trembling in their hands. The air reeks of iron and wet wool. The ground is strangely undisturbed, as though death has arrived not on paws or hooves, but on wings or in whispers. In their faces lingers the oldest fear of humankind, that something moves through the darkness beyond firelight, feeding on life itself. From this first slaughter, the legend unfurls. A name is whispered into the humid night: El Chupacabras, the goat sucker. The word itself feels like a curse, spat through clenched teeth, born from desperation and disbelief. It names a thing without precedent, yet older than memory. The monster that drains, that desecrates, that drinks the soul through the body's blood. Soon, the killings multiply. In the town of Canovanas, animals are found lifeless by the dozens, goats and chickens and rabbits stiff with terror. Each bears the same wounds, the same emptiness where blood should flow. A woman swears she has seen the beast itself, tall, reptilian, with skin like dry leather stretched across a thin frame, spines rising like a crown of thorns along its back. Eyes glow crimson, twin coals that smoulder in the dark. She speaks as if she had looked into a furnace and found it gazing back. Around her home, the tally of death climbs. 150 animals, drained in silence. The fear spreads faster than the killings. By summer, the island trembles under the shadow of a monster it cannot see. Farmers refuse to let their children walk alone at night. Priests mutter prayers as they bless corrals, sprinkling holy water over the earth itself. In every dark alley, in every shifting of leaves, people hear the sucking breath of the unseen predator. Newspapers seize upon the story. They print sketches that twist rumor into form. A reptile with dagger teeth, a kangaroo-shaped phantom that leaps with unnatural grace. No 2 witnesses agree, yet all speak with the same breathless certainty. Something new stalks Puerto Rico, something no one has words for until Silverio Perez, a comedian, seizes upon the horror and christens it with dark humor. His joke births a myth. Chupacabras, he says, and the word takes root in the collective imagination, flowering into nightmare. At night, radios hum with frightened voices. Farmers call in, their accents heavy with fear. One claims he heard a sound, not of any earthly beast, but a cry, high-pitched, almost mechanical, as if made by a throat not meant for this world. Another describes tracks in the dirt, clawed impressions too deep for a dog, too wide for a cat. The hosts listen, solemn, their programs becoming confessions in the cathedral of the airwaves. But the most unsettling thing is not what is found, but what is missing. There is no blood in the carcasses, no struggle, no scatter of fur or feathers that speaks of dogs or coyotes. It is as if the earth itself has risen to take its tithe, leaving behind only husks. By autumn, the Chupacabra has escaped the fences of Puerto Rico and entered the hemisphere's imagination. Reports spill from Dominican villages, from the outskirts of Miami, from ranches in Mexico. Always the same: drained animals, triangular wounds, silence where there should have been screams. Each retelling feeds the legend like blood into its waiting mouth. Still, in those earliest nights, the terror feels intimate, personal, a whispered haunting shared among neighbors who can no longer trust the safety of their own fields. They speak of red eyes glimpsed between banana trees, of shadows that leap impossibly across rooftops, of animals struck down without sound, as though death itself had learned to walk the earth in a new shape. The descriptions vary: reptile or kangaroo, lizard or alien, but always the essence remains: a creature that lives only to drink. Some swear it stands upright, talons curved like the knives of saints. Others insist it scuttles on 4 limbs, its back crowned with spines that bristle when it feeds. The uncertainty only deepens the dread. To name it is to fail it. To imagine it is to invite it closer. In the candlelit rooms of the island, families whisper of older tales, stories carried on ships across oceans. They speak of the goatsucker mentioned in ancient English texts, of cries mistaken for spirits of the dead. They wonder if this monster has been with them always, waiting beneath the soil, waiting for the right night to awaken hungry. For every skeptic who laughs, a dozen more swear they have seen something. And though scientists murmur about diseased dogs and misidentified predators, their words cannot pierce the thick shroud of fear. In the villages, what matters is not evidence, but experience. And experience says the Chupacabra walks at night, and it feeds. Canavanas becomes the beating heart of the panic. Patrols roam the streets. Hunters set traps baited with chickens. Children lie awake, their eyes fixed on windows that look out into the trembling dark. Every rustle in the brush becomes the herald of hunger. Every cry of a goat in the night is answered by silence, and silence is the most terrifying sound of all. And so it begins, not with a single body, but with 8. Not with a joke, but with blood on the earth. Not with proof, but with belief. The Chupacabra is born of death and dread, and like all monsters, once spoken, it cannot be unmade. For the island, 1995 becomes the year the shadows grew teeth. And though years will pass, though scientists and skeptics will argue and dismiss, the first nights remain seared into memory. Lanterns flickering against corrals, the hiss of breath held tight in the throat, the knowledge that something has come to drink, and it is not done. The fear in Puerto Rico does not remain contained. It spills outward, rolling like thunder across the Caribbean and into the Americas. By the end of 1995, more than 200 reports have gathered, like a storm cloud above the island. Each tale strikes with the same pattern: animals drained of life, puncture wounds like the touch of a trident, silence thick enough to suffocate. Reporters descend upon the villages. Cameras catch the faces of farmers whose livelihoods now lie in rows of husked corpses. Their voices break as they speak, half in rage, half in disbelief. It takes the blood, one insists, gripping the carcass of a goat as though it were his child. Another swears he has glimpsed the thing crouched upon a fence post, its eyes glowing red, its spines quivering like reeds in the wind. With every telling, the beast grows larger, more vivid. The Chupacabra is no longer a shadow, it is flesh in the imagination of thousands. The details weave together until an image congeals. A reptilian body, greenish-grey, mottled with black spots, skin like cracked scales, claws hooked and gleaming, fangs long enough to pierce the ribs of cattle. Some say it moves like a kangaroo, leaping impossibly far. Others whisper it glides with a weightless motion, as if gravity cannot chain it. In Canovanas, Mayor Jose Soto organizes nightly patrols. Armed men drive through dirt roads in trucks, sweeping the brush with headlights and rifles. the people huddle behind doors, listening to the distant engines, praying the patrols will find something, and fearing what will happen if they do. For the Chupacabra has already claimed its kingdom in the imagination, the predator of the night, the inheritor of every ancient terror. The myth slithers across the sea. In the Dominican Republic, animals are found drained in eerily similar fashion. In Mexico, ranchers discover mutilated goats and chickens, their blood vanished into the soil. South American newspapers seize the stories, weaving them into a chorus of dread. Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, each joins the litany of loss. Soon, the name Chupacabra echoes not just in Spanish, but in English, in whispers across the American South. The creature leaps oceans. In Spain, tales surface of a blood drinker loose in rural fields. In the Philippines, the shadow wears a new face but keeps the same appetite. Even Russia claims to hear its tread. What was born in Puerto Rico now stalks the globe, carried on the tongue of rumor, carried by the hunger of human imagination. But in those earliest nights, before the legend grows too wide, there is one face, one story that anchors it all, that of Madeline Tolentino, a woman of Canovanas who claims she looked upon the Chupacabra with her own eyes. She describes it with startling detail, tall, spiny-backed, alien in form. Her words crystallize the monster, giving it bones and sinew in the public mind. That she had seen a film, Species, only days before, will later raise skeptical eyebrows. Yet in 1995, her testimony falls like oil upon fire. A monster needs a witness, and now it has one. The name spreads faster than the beast itself. Chupacabras becomes a banner under which every strange killing, every unexplained shadow, every rumor of a drained carcass is gathered. Its syllables carry the sting of fear and the thrill of the unknown. Children whisper it like a dare, adults mutter it as a curse, and each repetition gives the creature strength. Yet the bodies remain. That is the truth no scientist or skeptic can erase. Sheep stiff and bloodless, chickens collapsed in their coops, necks perforated with needle wounds, rabbits rigid, eyes glassy with frozen terror. No predator leaves behind such clean horror. No dog or coyote kills with such surgical malice. These are not the ragged leavings of natural hunger. They are signatures of something other, something deliberate. In candlelit kitchens, families debate origins. Some say it is a demon released from ancient caves. Others whisper of government experiments gone wrong, creatures bred in laboratories and unleashed by accident or design. A few insist it is alien, a thing from beyond the stars that has chosen the island as its feeding ground. All agree on one thing: it is real, because death does not lie. As 1995 fades into 1996, the Chupacabra has become more than a tale. It is a plague of belief, seeding itself in every rural village, every farmstead where the earth drinks blood and offers no explanation. The people do not ask if it exists, they ask when it will strike again. The scientific voices are quieter, drowned in the clamor. They caution about stray dogs, coyotes, illness, human hysteria. But their words feel thin, inadequate, against the visceral evidence of dead animals and the raw grief of their owners. Logic has no place in midnight corrals where lantern light falls on puncture wounds. Reason falters when mothers hold lifeless chickens and children cry for goats they raised like companions. And so, belief triumphs. The Chupacabra moves from rumor into folklore, from whispered fear into cultural fact. It becomes not just a monster, but a mirror, reflecting the anxieties of modern life, the unease with science, the mistrust of governments, the enduring power of old superstitions. It is the monster of globalization, slipping across borders as easily as newsprint, mutating with every retelling. Even so, for all the theories and speculation, the heartbeat of the legend remains the same. Those first bloodless sheep in Puerto Rico, March of 1995. Their silent bodies are the altar upon which the myth is founded. Everything after is echo. Everything after is expansion. And when night falls again on the island, and the cicadas sing, and the wind shifts through banana leaves, some swear they still hear it, the sound of something breathing just beyond the fence line. Heavy, patient, hungry. Dawn creeps across the Caribbean, but the darkness does not lift. It lingers, carried not by clouds, but by stories, rumors that leap like sparks and set whole countries alight. By the mid-1990s, the Chupacabra has slipped the boundaries of Puerto Rico, riding on the wings of radio waves, newspaper ink, and frightened tongues. In dusty villages of Mexico, ranchers awaken to find goats stiff and hollow, drained of blood through neat punctures that seem too deliberate for wolves, too surgical for feral dogs. They call neighbors, and neighbors call journalists. And by the next day, headlines howl of El Chupacabras stalking northern fields. Farmers spit tobacco and shake their heads, muttering that this thing is no ordinary predator. Old men lean on fences and whisper of omens, of creatures that come only when the world is about to crack. Across the continent, in Chile's northern mining towns, the legend finds new soil. The year 2000 brings with it not prosperity, but dread. Corrals littered with sheep whose throats bear the mark of a silent visitor. For months, the attacks continue. Animals bled white, carcasses left strangely intact, as though slaughtered not for meat, but for essence. Panic grows so intense that some claim agents of the United States arrive in secret, cloaked in the insignia of NASA, to study what local men dare not approach. No proof is ever offered, but in fear, imagination requires no evidence. Farther south, in the pampas of Argentina, cattle lie mutilated under a moon that feels too close. Newspapers speculate on rituals, satanic cults, even extraterrestrial harvesters. Government veterinarians, their boots caked with dust and blood, pronounce simpler explanations: foxes, rodents, carrion feeders. But their voices carry no weight in the fields where the stench of death lingers. To the ranchers who find their herds ravaged, no fox could drain a body so clean. No rat could carve wounds so precise. The people know what walks among them, whether the officials admit it or not. Everywhere the stories travel, the Chupacabra changes. In Puerto Rico, it is reptilian, with spines and burning eyes. In Mexico, it grows dog-like, hairless, skin stretched tight over bones like leather over drum. In Chile, it takes on the shape of a shadow that flits between corrals, leaving only silence in its wake. Like all living myths, it adapts to the soil in which it is planted. Yet the appetite remains constant, the hunger for blood, the thirst that no amount of carcasses can quench. Journalists fan the flames. Grainy photographs of hairless beasts, mangy and skeletal, are printed as if they were holy relics. Television anchors speak the name with grave faces, giving the monster legitimacy with every syllable. Each photograph, each broadcast, is a ritual offering that keeps the Chupacabra alive. By the end of the decade, it is no longer a Puerto Rican curse, but a continental spectre, a Pan-American nightmare. The legends refuse to stay confined to the Americas. In the Philippines, whispers rise of a creature that prowls the night, its shape eerily familiar to the descriptions carried across the sea. Some compare it to the sigbin, an old folkloric beast said to drink the blood of livestock and hide in shadows. In Spain, farmers in rural provinces wake to find dead goats, their bodies echoing the same strange wounds first reported in Canovanas. Russia claims its own sightings, though the shape there is more phantom than flesh. A global monster is being born, one nourished not by bodies, but by repetition. And yet, For all its spread, the Chupacabra remains elusive. No cage holds it, no bullet fells it. What people see are traces, drained carcasses, shadows darting across roads, hairless corpses later dismissed as coyotes, riddled with mange. The absence of certainty becomes its own kind of proof. If it were only dogs, a Honduran farmer insists to a reporter, then why is there no blood? Why do the animals die so quiet? Questions hang in the humid air, unanswered, but their weight presses heavier than truth ever could. To walk the rural roads in those years is to feel the story breathing down your neck. Corrals that once stood open are now locked with chains and prayer. Lanterns burn through the night, their flames trembling in the wind, though no light is enough to chase away the thought of something waiting just beyond the fence. Mothers hush their children with lullabies that sound more like warnings. Fathers clutch rifles, though they know no bullet has yet found its mark. And all the while, the monster grows larger in the telling. It is said to leap rooftops in a single bound. It is said to vanish like smoke when cornered. It is said to screech with a cry so sharp it cuts into dreams. In every retelling, it becomes more than flesh. It becomes myth, and myths do not die. By the turn of the millennium, the Chupacabra is no longer a local terror. It is a cultural contagion, a modern folk tale that spreads with the speed of rumor and the authority of grief. Wherever blood is spilled and explanation falters, its shadow falls. And so the beast strides from island to mainland, from field to field, from hemisphere to hemisphere. It does not need proof to exist. It requires only death and the human hunger to explain it. In that hunger, the Chupacabra finds endless sustenance. Night in the borderlands carries a different kind of silence. Between northern Mexico and the southern United States, desert winds whistle through mesquite and wire fences, stirring dust over ranches where cattle shuffle uneasily. It is here, in the late 1990s, that the Chupacabra begins to find its American voice. Farmers in Texas and New Mexico rise to the same horrors Puerto Ricans once faced. Goats rigid in their pens, chickens drained where they roost, blood absent as if swallowed by the sand itself. News stations flash headlines of blood-sucking beasts, grainy footage of hairless animals prowling the roadside. Some carcasses are delivered to local authorities, and when veterinarians pull back the skin, they see nothing supernatural, only mange-ridden coyotes, their fur gone, their skin thick and grey. Yet photographs of these same corpses, with their hollow eyes and twisted frames, circulate in tabloids as proof of the Chupacabra's existence. The contradiction is never resolved. The rational explanation and the monstrous vision exist side by side, neither erasing the other. To believers, diseased coyotes are only camouflage, a mask the creature wears to fool those unwilling to see. To skeptics, the Chupacabra is nothing more than human imagination grafted onto suffering animals. But in the long nights of the border, where barns are found silent and pastures stained with death, imagination wins the argument. Media amplifies every whisper. Television crews linger outside corrals, their cameras lingering on the vacant eyes of dead goats. Reporters lean close to grieving farmers, asking what they saw, what they heard, and every hesitation becomes an opening for dread. In Cuero, Texas, a woman claims she has hunted the Chupacabra itself, photographed it, and kept its desiccated body as a trophy. Scientists later declare it a coyote hybrid, but the images of its corpse, grey, hairless, sharp of tooth, take on a second life, plastered across magazines and broadcast on primetime news. For many viewers, that body is the Chupacabra, no matter what DNA tests say. Meanwhile, the legend mutates. In Puerto Rico, the monster remains reptilian, a spine-backed phantom with glowing eyes. In Mexico and the US, it sheds scales for skin, becoming canine, gaunt, and mange-bitten. Each version contradicts the other, but this only deepens its hold. A creature that shifts appearance is harder to disprove, harder to pin down. Like a shadow, it changes shape depending on where the light falls. The panic seeps into everyday life. Children whisper the name in playgrounds, daring one another to walk the roads alone at dusk. Ranchers keep shotguns loaded by their doors. Small towns host late-night hunts, neighbors gathered with flashlights and rifles, combing the brush for signs of movement. Each rustle, each coyote's cry, sparks the trigger finger tension of men who no longer believe they share the land with ordinary predators. It is not only the rural poor who tell these stories. Urban radio stations carry late-night call-ins where trembling voices insist they have seen something stalking alleyways or perched on rooftops. Skeptical hosts chuckle at first, but soon even their laughter falters. For each call dismissed, 3 more arrive, layered with conviction, threaded with the same strange details. The eyes, the silence, the drained corpses left behind. By the early 2000s, the Chupacabra is no longer a local scare. It is an icon. It appears in cartoons, in horror movies, in the language of children's games. Merchants sell t-shirts with spiny-backed silhouettes. Tabloids headline its attacks alongside UFO abductions and haunted houses. The more the creature is doubted, the more it thrives. Disbelief itself becomes fuel, because the monster belongs not to evidence, but to narrative, and stories are harder to kill than flesh. In the eyes of believers, every denial from a scientist confirms suspicion. If experts claim the bodies are only coyotes, then experts are part of the cover-up. If DNA tests reveal dog hybrids, then perhaps the Chupacabra mingles its blood with earthly beasts, corrupting them into its image. In this way, the legend resists every attempt to bury it. The Chupacabra lives in the space between truth and belief, feeding on the tension like it feeds on blood. Beyond the Americas, echoes continue. In the Philippines, the Sigbin legend gains new breath, its details reshaped to match Puerto Rican accounts. In Louisiana, old whispers of the Grunch, strange creatures lurking on Grunch Road, are revived, their descriptions painted in Chupacabra hues. Wherever folklore has spoken of blood drinkers or nocturnal terrors, the new name seeps in, stitching old fears into a global patchwork. Yet even as it spreads, the legend is haunted by a paradox. Everyone knows the story, yet no one has caught the beast. Not alive, not whole. What exists are fragments, corpses that look too much like sick dogs, footprints that crumble under scrutiny, voices trembling with certainty, but empty of proof. This absence, rather than weakening the tale, only sharpens it. For what is a monster, if not the embodiment of what we cannot grasp? And so the Chupacabra's shadow lengthens, crossing borders without passport, feeding on goats in the imagination of farmers thousands of miles apart. The monster that began in a corral in Canovanas now strides across continents. A creature of rumor, grief, and bloodless bodies. By the close of the decade, its presence is undeniable, not as a biological specimen, but as a cultural reality. It inhabits nightmares, newscasts, and whispered warnings. In the Americas, parents call children inside at dusk, not just for safety, but for fear of what prowls the night. The world has grown smaller, and so too has the distance between folklore and fact. With each story carried across radio static, with each headline printed in black ink, the Chupacabra ceases to be just a Puerto Rican curse. It becomes the first great monster of the global age, borderless, mutable, impossible to cage. And still, the hunger remains. That is what ties every sighting together. The drained corpses, the punctured flesh, the silence of death that falls too quickly, too cleanly. Wherever blood pools unseen, people look to the shadows and wonder if the Chupacabra has passed through, leaving only husks and fear behind. the earth remembers what the mind invents. In Puerto Rico, the creature first rises from whispers as a reptile cloaked in shadows, a thing scaled like a serpent, yet upright like a man. Witnesses describe skin grey-green and mottled, as though carved from stone and left to weather in rain. Spines run from its skull to its tail, sharp as a crown of thorns. Its eyes glow crimson, two coals suspended in darkness, eyes that seem to see not flesh, but the blood that pulses beneath. Others insist it is smaller, the size of a bear cub, but heavy, thick in the chest, built not for grace, but for endurance. When it moves, they say, it hops, kangaroo-like, bounding from field to field in eerie silence. Its claws dig furrows into the soil, and when it lands, the ground itself seems to recoil. Descriptions diverge, yet all tremble with conviction. To hear the islanders speak is to believe the Chupacabra is not one creature, but a chorus of terrors stitched together. Alien, beast, demon. It resists capture because it resists form, shifting in the imagination with each new sighting. What remains constant are the wounds, triangular punctures, the stigmata of its hunger, and the emptiness left behind. As the legend spreads north, the shape begins to change. The reptile sloughs away, replaced by something more familiar, yet no less unsettling. In Texas, in Mexico, in the borderlands where desert wind cuts like knives, the Chupacabra takes the form of a dog gone wrong. Hairless, its skin stretched taut and wrinkled, a grotesque parody of canine flesh. The vertebrae protrude like a jagged ridge, its eyes sink into deep hollows, dark as pits. The smell is said to be unbearable, a fetid mix of rot and musk. Farmers describe it leaping fences with unnatural speed, tearing at livestock with elongated teeth, and vanishing into the brush before dawn. The bloodless carcasses testify more eloquently than any words. A man can doubt his eyes. He cannot doubt the goat at his feet, cold and emptied. For some, this canine visage weakens the legend. Skeptics hold up photographs of mangy coyotes, their hair fallen in clumps, their ribs showing through diseased skin, and declare the mystery solved. But the more they explain, the less people believe. The horror of a sick dog cannot match the terror of a vampire beast. And so, belief bends the evidence until even a hairless coyote becomes the Chupacabra, stripped of its disguise. The duality persists. Two monsters walk under the same name, one reptilian, alien, a nightmare risen from fever dreams, the other canine, terrestrial, but made monstrous by suffering. Between them stretches a gulf no explanation can bridge. Yet both live, both thrive, because fear does not demand consistency, only certainty that something is out there, feeding in the dark. And within that contradiction lies the power of the legend. To see the reptile is to glimpse the otherworldly, a creature too strange to belong to the earth. To see the dog-like corpse is to confront a more intimate horror. That monsters are not born in the void, but bred from the bodies of the familiar, twisted by disease until recognition itself becomes frightening. The Chupacabra becomes a mirror of culture. In Puerto Rico, the alien image reflects unease with forces unseen, government secrets, foreign interventions, the terror of the unknown. In the United States, the mangy dog form reflects anxieties rooted in the natural world, disease, decay, predators encroaching on human territory. Two faces of one myth, shaped not by biology, but by the fears of those who tell it. Around kitchen tables, people debate the forms as if choosing between saints. It has scales, one says. No, fur, or what was left of it. Another swears it had wings, leathery and tattered, though no carcass ever reveals such appendages. The story grows taller in the retelling, fed by firelight and fear, The details contradict, but the hunger unites. The alien face, crowned with spines, becomes the darling of tabloids and illustrators. It graces covers with blazing eyes and claws like knives. Children doodle it in school notebooks, and screenwriters shape it into something fit for science fiction. Meanwhile, the canine version stalks quietly through rural headlines, its body photographed on back roads, displayed in freezers, dissected in laboratories. Two monsters, two truths, each as enduring as the other. And through this confusion, the Chupacabra becomes something more powerful than a single beast. It becomes a category of dread, a title given to whatever defies explanation. A mutilated cow in Argentina, a hairless hybrid in Texas, a shadow in Honduras. All are Chupacabra, all belong to the hunger. What makes it endure is not what it looks like, but what it does. The body drained, the silence of the kill, the refusal of the earth to yield answers, the reptile and the dog, the alien and the mangy coyote, are only masks worn by the same truth. Something takes, something feeds, something leaves behind only husks for the living to mourn. In this way, the monster grows not weaker but stronger through contradiction. For if it has no single shape, it can never be disproved. If it is reptile here and canine there, then who can say what it truly is? Each new form adds another layer to its myth, another shadow for it to hide in. And so, by the turn of the millennium, the Chupacabra is not one monster, but many. It stalks the imagination in multiple bodies, wears multiple faces, all bound together by thirst. The blood is the constant, the emptiness is the truth. The shape is only a mask, changing with the needs of the night. Monsters live first in the mouth. Each retelling of the Chupacabra reshapes it, molds its body like clay, until the creature exists in 1,000 variations at once. A woman in Puerto Rico swears its skin gleamed like tarnished bronze beneath the moonlight. A boy in Mexico insists he saw no scales, only wrinkled flesh stretched tight across a crooked spine. In Texas, hunters drag a carcass from the roadside, a mangy coyote, the experts say, but the townsfolk nod grimly and call it proof of the beast. This is how the Chupacabra survives, not in photographs or cages, but in contradiction. To see it differently is not to weaken the story, but to confirm its strangeness. Creatures that defy definition feel older, darker, more true. The reptilian version lingers like a dream that refuses to fade with daylight. Witnesses describe it standing upright, talons curving like sabers, its breath sour with rot. Spines ripple along its back, quivering when it leaps. They say it moves like a machine of flesh, stuttering, jerking, unnatural. Some liken it to an alien stranded among humans, an exile of another world forced to feed on goats and chickens in the tropics. Its gaze is hypnotic, they whisper. Red eyes that paralyze prey before the strike. This image finds fertile ground in media. Illustrators seize upon it for lurid covers, sketching the beast with insectoid angles, a predator both futuristic and primeval. It becomes the poster child of late-night documentaries, the star of grainy reenactments where actors stumble through fields clutching flashlights, waiting for glowing eyes to ignite the screen. The reptile shape is spectacle, made for fear, made for belief. But another form haunts the ranch lands. The dog shape, gaunt and hairless, prowls closer to home. Its horror lies not in otherworldliness, but in recognition. The outline is familiar, the arch of a coyote's back, the tapered muzzle, the quick darting of a scavenger. Yet disease strips away its innocence. Mange devours the fur, thickens the skin, leaves it raw and stinking. The creature limps, weakened, its hunger turned desperate. To see such an animal at the edge of the field is to feel unease, not born of myth, but of decay. And yet, when livestock turn up bloodless, When puncture wounds appear like signatures in the flesh, that unease sharpens into certainty. This is no mere coyote. This is the Chupacabra, wearing the skin of a dying dog, cloaking itself in weakness so that no man will expect the strength of its hunger. Scientists insist the explanation is simple. Mange ravages coyotes, they say, leaving them too feeble to chase deer or rabbits. Driven by desperation, they turn to easy prey. Chickens in their coops, goats penned at night. Their jaws leave puncture wounds. Their hunger leaves corpses. That is all. But a farmer standing in his blood-stained corral does not hear science. He sees a goat stiff with terror, body intact, blood gone. He remembers his neighbor's story and his cousins and the whispers on the radio. He knows what has come. He names it with the word all men know by now, Chupacabra. In this divide between laboratory certainty and rural conviction, the creature finds its strength. It thrives in the distance between microscope and memory. The reptilian form speaks to the cosmic unknown, to fears of alien intrusions and experiments hidden in government vaults. The canine form speaks to the earthly decay, to sickness, to the terror that even familiar beasts can transform into nightmares. Two shapes, one hunger. Both true, and in truth what matters is not whether the Chupacabra has scales or mange, spines or ribs. What matters is the effect. The corral emptied, the blood missing. The silence of animals dying without a sound. The shape is only a costume worn by hunger, discarded and remade with every retelling. Around campfires in Texas, the story mutates. The Chupacabra is said to crouch on rooftops watching children sleep. In Mexico, it hides in drainage ditches, waiting for goats to wander close. In Puerto Rico, it vanishes into caves said to stretch for miles beneath the island, tunnels where the air tastes of sulfur and echoes with dripping water. The body may change, but the darkness remains constant. What emerges from this patchwork is not confusion, but inevitability. The monster has no fixed form because the monster is not fixed in flesh. It is born from loss, from mystery, from the need to name the silence that follows slaughter. Whether reptilian or canine, alien or diseased, it is the same hunger wearing different faces. And perhaps that is its truest power, to remind us that monsters are not always strangers. Sometimes they are reflections of what we already know, distorted by fear, magnified by grief. The reptilian beast reminds us that the unknown waits just beyond the stars. The canine spectre reminds us that sickness gnaws at the familiar until it becomes unrecognizable. Both truths wound. Both truths feed the legend. So the Chupacabra walks in two bodies, two shapes, two worlds. It stalks the imagination like a twin shadow, one scaled, one hairless, both thirsty. And every time a farmer finds a bloodless goat, every time a child wakes from a dream of glowing eyes, the creature chooses its mask anew. It is reptile tonight, dog tomorrow, alien this year, coyote the next. And always, beneath the skin, it is the same hollow hunger, the same silence after the kill, the same dread that whispers, something has come to feed, and it does not care what face it wears. By the late 1990s, the Chupacabra has become more than a whisper in rural fields. It is a headline, a sketch on late-night television, a creature invoked in the same breath as UFOs and demons. But where fear flourishes, skepticism soon follows. Into the humid air of Puerto Rico and the dry winds of Texas, another chorus rises. Men of science, demanding evidence, seeking the creature not in shadows, but in blood, bone, and proof. Their words come cool and clipped, delivered in laboratories that smell of disinfectant instead of fear. Veterinarians dissect carcasses said to have been drained. Their scalpels find blood still pooled in the veins, organs intact, bodies not emptied, but simply mauled. The arteries were never struck, one insists. The bleeding was internal, To him, the mystery dies on the table. To the farmers who buried their goats, the explanation is nothing but insult, a denial of what they saw with their own eyes. Others point to the corpses of the supposed Chupacabra, the grey, hairless beasts hauled in from highways and chicken coops. Scientists trace their DNA. The results return mundane. Coyote, dog, wolf, sometimes a mix of all three. Mange, they say, explains the monstrous form. A parasite burrows into the skin. The animal scratches until fur is gone. Flesh hardens. Eyes sink. Weakened and starving, the beast turns to easy prey. The result is grotesque but not supernatural. In Michigan, Barry O'Connor studies the mites under a microscope. Sarcops scabiei, he calls them, the architects of mange, tiny, invisible demons gnawing at skin until even the proudest predator staggers. To him, this is the truth of the Chupacabra, not a reptile from the stars, not a vampire born in Caribbean caves, but a coyote ravaged by sickness, a horror born not of folklore, but of biology. And yet the story does not die, it deepens. To believers, the scientists are blind, their microscopes incapable of seeing what stalks between corrals. If tests reveal only dog or coyote, then the Chupacabra must be something cleverer still, a shapeshifter, a parasite that cloaks itself in familiar bodies. Every denial sharpens suspicion. The more science argues, the more certain believers become. Investigators from beyond academia join the fray. Benjamin Radford, chasing the story like a hunter in the dark, interviews witnesses, examines reports, and digs at the roots of the legend. He uncovers a strange coincidence. The most detailed description of the Chupacabra, given by Madeline Tolentino in Puerto Rico, matches almost exactly the alien creature from a recent Hollywood film. Species. Spines down the back. Large, lidless eyes. Kangaroo stance. She had seen the movie days before her sighting. Was her monster born not of night, but of cinema? Radford insists the resemblance is too close to ignore. He writes that the original vision of the Chupacabra may have been an echo of the screen, a fiction mistaken for memory. If true, the entire edifice of the legend wavers, a castle built on sand. But belief is sturdier than reason. Even if the first sighting was tainted, what of the hundreds that followed? Were they two mere reflections, or did something real slip through in the chaos of imagination? Scott Corrales, another chronicler of the unexplained, defends the witness. He points out that the creature from the film and the descriptions in Puerto Rico share too many traits to dismiss. He wonders if the similarity is not coincidence, but revelation, that perhaps art imitates reality more closely than skeptics allow. After all, myths have always found ways to disguise themselves in familiar forms. The debate spreads like fire through dry brush. Scientists stand on one side, wielding scalpels, microscopes, and DNA results. Believers stand on the other, holding bloodless goats, trembling testimonies, and the weight of terror. Between them lies the corpse of a legend that refuses to stay still long enough to be claimed. Even the wounds themselves are contested. Farmers point to the punctures, neat and triangular, as proof of something unnatural. Veterinarians shake their heads. Canine teeth, they explain, two upper, two lower. Nothing strange at all. But how then to explain the lack of blood, the body so eerily intact? Experts counter that prey often dies from internal hemorrhage, that scavengers may lick away the blood. That absence is not proof of sorcery. The farmers, weary and grieving, hear only excuses. What emerges is not clarity, but division. On one side, the Chupacabra is a legend explained, dismantled and exposed. On the other, it is a mystery denied, mocked, but no less real for the ridicule. For science offers explanations, but explanations are not what legends demand. Legends demand experience, conviction. the prickling of hair on the neck when a lantern flickers and silence falls. And so, the myth survives the autopsy table. It survives the DNA test. It survives the ridicule of skeptics and the mockery of late-night hosts. For each rational argument, 100 new stories rise, whispered in corrals, told on crackling radios, passed from parent to child. Evidence may falter. Belief does not. In this stalemate, the Chupacabra finds its true power. It is not a beast to be trapped or dissected. It is a rift between worlds, between the sterility of the lab and the raw grief of the field, between what the eye sees and what the mind knows. In that rift, the monster thrives, nourished by doubt, fattened by contradiction. And always, beneath the arguments and the laughter, the bodies remain. Bloodless goats, silent chickens, rabbits stiff with terror. Science may offer explanations, but the earth still drinks its tithe. Farmers still bury their dead. And the name, Chupacabra, still lingers in the air, sharp as the tang of iron, whispered like a curse, like a prayer. The search for answers rarely calms a haunted people. In the years after the first Puerto Rican reports, scientists return again and again with cages, syringes, and microscopes. They write their conclusions with steady hands: coyotes with mange, dogs starved and sick, predators whose wounds mimic the uncanny. But outside their laboratories, the world remains unconvinced. Rural families, still counting their dead animals, feel the coldness of these explanations. To them, science speaks a language too sterile, too clean to capture the violence of what they have seen. The goat, with punctures in its chest, is not comforted by the word sarcopts. The silence of the chicken coop cannot be explained away with a chart of canine dentition. Belief flourishes not because evidence is lacking, but because evidence does not touch the heart. And where certainty fails, suspicion blooms. Some insist the Chupacabra is no natural beast, but a creature made in secret laboratories, a child of experiments gone wrong. Puerto Rico, with its history of military bases and foreign research facilities, offers fertile ground for such theories. Whispers spread of genetic splicing, of alien DNA mingled with earthly blood, of monsters bred behind government gates and unleashed when containment failed. Others lean further into the stars. They claim the Chupacabra is extraterrestrial, a scout from distant worlds, feeding on livestock while it learns the habits of humanity. The red eyes are not eyes at all, but lenses. The spines are not spines, but antennae. Each carcass is evidence not of hunger, but of reconnaissance. What the farmers bury, these believers say, are not the remains of prey, but the warnings of an invasion yet to come. In every version, the authorities are complicit. If scientists say the bodies are coyotes, it is because they fear the truth. If DNA reveals hybrids, it is because the government has buried the real results. Each denial becomes proof of a cover-up. Each test strengthens the conviction that something larger, darker, and deliberate is at work. Conspiracies weave into folklore, and the folklore into faith. By the early 2000s, the Chupacabra is not only a monster, but a symbol. For some, it embodies distrust of authority, the sense that ordinary people are left defenseless, while secrets fester in the shadows. For others, it is proof that modernity has not banished the supernatural, that the world still holds mysteries beyond the reach of reason. And for those who have buried animals drained in the night, it is simply reality. The clash plays out not only in fields and laboratories, but in the media that thrives on fear. Tabloids splash lurid headlines. Blood Beast stalks Texas. Television programs stage reenactments where actors scream in barns as shadows leap across screens. Radio hosts take call after call from trembling voices. In such arenas, skepticism rarely wins. Audiences hunger for dread, not dismissal. A mangy coyote is not a story. A bloodsucker that crosses continents is. Benjamin Radford, in his meticulous pursuit, publishes his findings. He traces the creature's origin to Madeline Tolentino's testimony and its uncanny resemblance to the monster from Species. He calls the Chupacabra a cultural echo, a case study in how imagination shapes reality. Yet for every reader who nods, another dismisses his work as academic arrogance. "Tell that to the farmers," one says. "Tell that to the bloodless goats." This is the paradox. The more skeptics try to strangle the legend with logic, the stronger it seems to grow. Each debunking feeds the suspicion that truth is being hidden. Each analysis feels like dismissal, and dismissal fuels defiance. In the end, both believer and skeptic stand with equal certainty, divided not by evidence but by worldview. And in that divide, the Chupacabra becomes immortal. It does not require proof. It requires only the persistence of fear. It does not need to be caught. It needs only to be told and retold. Science dissects bodies. Folklore resurrects them. Between the two, the monster thrives. Even today, in quiet fields where livestock stir uneasily, the old questions remain. When an animal is found collapsed in its pen, blood seeming thinner than it should be, punctures too clean, silence too heavy, science may offer its words. But words cannot soothe the chill that creeps down a spine when lantern light falls on a carcass, and the earth seems to whisper, "Something has fed here." Belief does not wait for permission. It rises in the night like a shadow, fills the silence with a name and refuses to leave. And in that refusal, the Chupacabra remains, not in cages or microscopes, but in the space between explanation and experience, in the rift where human doubt becomes the perfect lair for monsters. Stories leave stains like blood on soil. By the close of the 1990s, the Chupacabra has already claimed its place as a terror without borders. But the years that follow only deepen the trail. Across continents, carcasses appear, each bearing the mark of a predator unseen. Newspapers scramble, cameras arrive, and once again the world learns that the hunger has not ended. In the spring of 2000, the dry winds of Chile's northern deserts carry whispers of slaughter. In Calama, a mining town scarred by dust and salt, corrals are found empty of life. Sheep lie crumpled in heaps, necks punctured, bodies intact, their blood seemingly gone. For 2 years, the killings continue, spreading through villages like plague. By night, farmers patrol the rocky hills, rifles clenched in hands slick with sweat, while the press spins tales of NASA teams slipping into the country under cover of darkness, dispatched to study what local men fear to face. No proof is offered, yet the rumor becomes truth in the telling. A foreign hand must be involved, for the horror feels too vast to be born from local soil. In Argentina, the legend takes another shape. The year 2002 dawns, with mutilated cattle stretched across pampas that roll into horizonless distance. Not goats now, but cows, massive bodies left with organs missing, reproductive parts carved away as though by surgical hands. Panic spreads like wildfire. Some cry Chupacabra, others whisper of satanic rites in the night. Scientists from SENASA, the National Agricultural Service, kneel beside the corpses, clip samples, and declare the culprits to be foxes and rats. But in the villages, no one believes. Foxes do not leave wounds so clean. Rats do not drain life with such precision. Whatever stalks the grasslands feels deliberate, purposeful, inhuman. Farther north, Texas becomes a new stage for the old terror. In the summer heat of 2004, on the outskirts of San Antonio, a rancher draws his rifle at the sight of a gaunt, hairless creature tearing into his livestock. When the gun smokes clear, the carcass lies still, grey-skinned, sharp-toothed, eyes wide, even in death. The body earns a name of its own, the Beast of Elmendorf. Photographs circulate, tabloids salivate. and scientists once more step forward with their verdict: a coyote ravaged by sarcoptic mange. DNA confirms their claim, but the photographs linger longer than the tests. To the public, the beast's withered snarl becomes another mask of the Chupacabra, another body added to the tally of proof. Only months later, more corpses appear in the same Texas soil. Each hairless, each diseased, each declared coyote by the laboratories. But once a creature wears a name, it cannot be unnamed. Chupacabra, the people say. And so it is. The years turn and the trail winds on. In 2007, Cuero, Texas, becomes a shrine to the legend. A woman named Phyllis Canyon finds a strange carcass near her property, its skin bluish, its form caught between coyote and wolf. She has it preserved by a taxidermist, displayed like a relic in her home. For her, it is not curiosity, but conviction. 30 of her chickens have died over the years, each drained as though by invisible syringes. She believes she has finally caught the culprit. Scientists test the body, name it coyote-wolf hybrid, perhaps sick with mange. Yet in Cuero, the creature becomes a tourist attraction, photographed and marveled at. It matters little what the papers say. What matters is the body, the evidence of something uncanny that refuses to stay buried. Other towns join the chorus. In Maine, a carcass is pulled from the roadside, its twisted features sparking headlines until DNA reveals a wolf-dog hybrid. In Kentucky, a farmer shoots a strange, whiskered beast no larger than a house cat, declaring it nothing he has seen before. Each time, the scientists step forward with explanations. Each time, the legend walks on, shrugging off reason like dust from its scales. The chronology becomes a litany of deaths, stretching across years and borders. 1995 in Puerto Rico, 2000 in Chile, 2002 in Argentina, 2004 in Elmendorf, 2007 in Cuero. In every case, the pattern repeats. Animals slain, bodies drained, fear rising, science denying, belief surviving. It is not the corpse alone that keeps the legend alive, but the rhythm of its return. The Chupacabra becomes less a creature than a recurrence, a curse that reappears wherever animals die strangely and explanations fall short. What makes these stories endure is not simply horror, but ritual. Farmers gather around carcasses as if around altars, pointing at punctures, muttering prayers or curses. Reporters arrive like priests, recording testimony with solemn pens. Scientists offer their diagnoses, and believers reject them, and the cycle begins anew. Every case becomes a reenactment of the first. The lanterns, the bloodless bodies, the whispered word. And always, the bodies pile higher. Chickens in Puerto Rico, sheep in Chile, cattle in Argentina, coyotes in Texas. Each added to the shadow's account, each claimed as a victim of the insatiable hunger. The Chupacabra, once bound to one island, now stretches its reach across half the world. The blood trails are not clean, they are muddied by rumor, by error, by the stink of decay. Yet even in contradiction, the pattern holds: an animal drained, a wound unexplained, a community left trembling. The shape of the predator shifts, the dread remains the same. And so, as the new millennium dawns, the Chupacabra ceases to be a passing curiosity. It becomes a chronic affliction, a recurring stain upon the fabric of modern folklore. Every decade, every nation, every death joins the procession. What began as 8 goats in Puerto Rico has become an endless trail of corpses across the globe. And in the silence between each killing, in the breathless waiting for the next, the legend grows fatter, hungrier, eternal. The years roll forward, yet the monster does not fade. If anything, it grows bolder, stepping from whispered rumor into the flicker of cameras and the pixels of screens. The Chupacabra of the new millennium is no longer only a shadow in corrals. It is a headline, A video clip, a body pulled from a ditch and displayed to the world. In 2006, a woman in Maine photographs a creature slumped on the roadside, its limbs stiff, its face twisted in a snarl even death cannot erase. She swears she has seen it before, prowling the edge of her property like a phantom. The body is later declared a hybrid, wolf and dog, nothing more. Yet for days, the photograph circulates through newspapers and talk shows, offered as the latest mask of the bloodsucker. Even in death, it feeds, not on goats, but on the hunger of people for proof. The following year in Cuero, Texas, the legend cements itself into local history. Phyllis Canyon, who has preserved the strange blue-grey carcass found near her land, becomes both believer and curator. Visitors file into her home to see the stuffed beast, to touch the taxidermied skin and whisper the name that science denies. DNA reveals coyote, mixed perhaps with wolf, but the tests are irrelevant. The body itself, displayed like a relic, is enough to convince. For the faithful, the scientists are blind. For the skeptics, the faithful are fools. Between them stands the Chupacabra, smiling with a mouth full of absent blood. By 2008, patrol cars in DeWitt County capture footage of a hairless animal darting through alleyways. The video, grainy and trembling, shows only the outline: elongated muzzle, gaunt frame, legs too short in front, too long in back. Experts suggest coyote, or perhaps a wild dog, but the shape becomes immortalized on television, replayed until it burns into memory. For many, it is the clearest sighting yet. For others, another carcass waiting to be explained away. The decade is marked by bodies. In 2009, CNN broadcast the image of a dead animal in a Texas barn, its skin bare, its teeth bared. A taxidermist claims it is a genetic mutation of coyote. To the public, it is the Chupacabra laid bare. In 2010, animal control officers in Hood County shoot another strange beast, only to learn its DNA betrays a hybrid of coyote and dog, ravaged by mange. Before the verdict, though, the photographs race across the internet, shared, debated, believed. Each corpse becomes a stage in the same performance: discovery, outcry, headlines, photographs, autopsies, dismissal, and through it all, belief refuses to die. The Chupacabra thrives on this cycle. Every denial gives it more life, every explanation more shadow to hide within. Kentucky joins the litany in 2010 when a man shoots a whiskered, long-tailed creature the size of a cat. He has never seen its like. The photographs circulate, sparking debates in newspapers and forums. Some call it a Chupacabra, others a hairless raccoon. It does not matter. For a time, the body wears the name, and the name is enough. 2011 brings a curious turn. In Lake Jackson, Texas, a man named Jack Crabtree claims he has seen the Chupacabra in his yard, padding across his lawn under the moonlight. Reporters flock, headlines multiply, and the town buzzes with unease. Days later, animal control officers capture the creature itself, a coyote with mange. Crabtree admits the truth, half sheepish, half amused. But for the days between sighting and capture, the Chupacabra prowled his yard, lived in his town, stalked his neighbors' dreams. The correction comes too late. Once a monster steps into the light, it does not vanish. It lingers, it festers, it echoes. In Argentina, the tale mutates again. In 2013, a family in Santa Fe province claims to have found the body of the beast, small, stiff, and unrecognizable. Photographs flood the press. Scientists examine it and declare it nothing but a naturally mummified cat. Yet for weeks the story burns, the image of the tiny corpse igniting the old fear once more. Even the smallest husk can hold the weight of a monster. The same year in Missouri, FOX News reports a woman's sighting near an old racetrack, followed by a hunter's claim that he has killed one. Officials identify it as a dog with mange, but the legend continues, amplified by broadcast and retelling. 2014 brings fresh bodies in Texas. A rancher shoots what he believes to be the Chupacabra, skin hairless, teeth long, eyes feral. He is not alone. Another couple claims to have captured one alive in Ratcliffe, its gaunt form pacing a cage. Photographs of the living creature spread across the internet, debated in forums, examined in newsrooms. Scientists suggest raccoon, twisted by mange, but the public refuses simplicity. A raccoon is a raccoon. This, they say, is something else. Something hungrier, something true. The blood trails of these years are as much digital as physical. The Chupacabra has migrated from corrals and goat pens into the bloodstream of the internet. Photographs, grainy videos, and eyewitness interviews become the new carcasses, drained of context and displayed as trophies. Skeptics debunk them one by one, but the legend does not weaken. It grows, fed by each new image, each new debate, each new refusal to be pinned down. The pattern is relentless. A body appears. A scientist dismisses it. A believer refuses to accept the dismissal. And in the gulf between them, the Chupacabra continues to walk. By the mid-2000s, the creature is no longer only folklore or fear. It has become a ritual of modern life, the discovery, the denial, the belief, a cycle as inevitable as death itself. Wherever livestock dies strangely, wherever carcasses puzzle their keepers, the old name returns like a curse on the wind. Chupacabra. The blood trails of these decades do not lead to capture nor to proof. They lead only deeper into the labyrinth of belief. Every corpse is a door, and behind each door waits another room filled with silence, suspicion, and hunger. And so the trail does not end. It stretches forward into future fields, future headlines, future nights where the wind stirs and farmers wake to find their corrals empty. The Chupacabra endures not because it is caught, but because it is never caught. Its body lies in countless ditches, and yet it remains alive. It is contradiction given flesh, rumor given teeth, disbelief given wings. The legend does not walk alone. It walks beside every carcass, every photograph, every denial, every whisper. And until the last story is told, the blood trails will never fade. Every monster is a mirror. What we see in its eyes is not its truth, but our own. The Chupacabra, more than any beast before it, reflects the shadows of the age that birthed it. Shadows woven of distrust, fear, and the hunger for wonder in a world grown too small for miracles. In Puerto Rico, the legend rises from soil already heavy with unease. The island knows the weight of military experiments, the secrecy of government projects, the whispers of diseases and tests that no villager can name but all suspect. Into that atmosphere steps a creature unseen, draining animals without trace, leaving silence in its wake. For many, the connection is immediate. This is no natural predator. This is the offspring of laboratories, a monster stitched together by foreign hands and unleashed upon the innocent. The Chupacabra becomes a story of violation, not just of goats and chickens, but of sovereignty, of trust. Cross the waters, and the mirror shifts. In Mexico and the borderlands of Texas, the Chupacabra wears a different face. The mange-ridden dog, the coyote stripped to bone. Here, the fear is not of experiments in hidden bases, but of sickness gnawing at the edges of the familiar. Farmers see creatures they know, coyotes, wolves, wild dogs, transformed into husks by invisible parasites. Mange eats away fur, strength, dignity, until what remains is something uncanny. The horror lies not in the unknown, but in the too well-known, made strange and frightening. The Chupacabra here is not alien. It is the corruption of what should have been safe. The legend thrives because it speaks both languages at once. It is alien invader and local plague. It is the fear of intrusion and the fear of decay. It embodies the suspicion that threats come both from without and within, from strangers across oceans and from sickness under our very skin. Few creatures carry so much contradiction, and fewer still survive it. The Chupacabra does not merely survive, it feeds on contradiction, grows fat on it, becomes immortal because of it. And yet beneath these explanations, laboratories, mange, diseased predators, lies something older. Blood drinkers have haunted human imagination since the first herds were domesticated. In every corner of the world, legends whisper of creatures that feed not on flesh, but on essence, slipping past defenses to drink the life that runs beneath the skin. The Chupacabra is only the newest incarnation of this eternal dread. In the Philippines, they tell of the sigbin, a creature that creeps backward, its head bowed low, its long ears flapping as it sucks blood from goats in silence. In New Orleans, an old tale lingers of Grunch Road, where grunches lurk, part man, part beast, preying upon livestock and lovers alike. In Europe, centuries earlier, peasants spoke of night stalkers that drained cattle through wounds that baffled even the most seasoned herders. Go farther back still, and you find ancient texts where cries in the night are mistaken for the wails of goat suckers. The shape changes, reptile, dog, bat, shadow, but the appetite is eternal. Something always drinks, and we always fear the draining. Blood is more than liquid. It is life, spirit, soul. To lose it without a fight is to be robbed not just of breath, but of meaning. Perhaps this is why necropsies and DNA tests fail to quiet the fear. Even if no blood is truly missing, the bodies look emptied. Even if mange explains the form, the carcass feels monstrous. Science dissects facts, but folklore dissects feelings, and feelings are stronger in the long dark hours when fences creak and animals cry. The Chupacabra, then, is not merely a beast. It is an answer to the unanswerable. Why the goat died without struggle. Why the chickens lie silent in their coop. Why the coyote looks like a corpse walking. In the absence of certainty, belief rushes to fill the void. And once belief enters, it does not leave. But the monster does more than explain. It accuses. It points to wounds in society itself. It embodies suspicion of authorities, mistrust of neighbors, dread of disease. It whispers that the world is not safe, that threats creep in through gates left open or secrets buried too deep. The Chupacabra feeds not only on animals, but on anxiety, becoming the avatar of a generation caught between modern science and ancient fear. And yet, like all legends, it also offers a strange kind of comfort. To name the monster is to fight it. To whisper Chupacabra is to take chaos and give it a body, a hunger, a form. Better to face a creature with fangs than an absence without shape. Better to blame the goat's death on a vampire beast than on randomness, or worse, on our own helplessness. In this way, the Chupacabra becomes necessary. It is not simply folklore, not merely rumor. It is a ritual of explanation, a shield against the unbearable truth that sometimes the world is senseless. To believe in the monster is to impose order upon terror. It drains blood, yes, but it also restores meaning. And so, the creature lingers. It does not matter that scientists insist it is a coyote, that skeptics trace it to a film, that autopsies show no blood missing. The Chupacabra has already escaped their nets. It dwells not in cages, but in minds, in whispers, in the long shadow cast by fear. The monster of Puerto Rico, the beast of Mexico, the hybrid of Texas, they are all one, and they are all many. They live where fear lives. They thrive where suspicion blooms. They haunt where silence falls. The Chupacabra is not only of the body, it is of the mind, and the mind, unlike flesh, cannot be drained. Legends rarely stay fixed. They shift, mutate, slip into new skins just as easily as the Chupacabra itself. By the 2000s, the creature has ceased to be only a rural terror. It has become something larger, stranger, a phantom straddling the worlds of horror and humor, belief and parody. In small towns, it is still feared. Farmers still wake to find a livestock collapsed in eerie silence, wounds inexplicable, and for them, the word Chupacabra rises unbidden, as natural as breath. But in cities, the monster has become something else. A punchline, a meme, a symbol of the uncanny stitched into cartoons and late-night comedy. Children wear t-shirts with cartoonish goat suckers leaping across them. Internet forums buzz with doctored photographs. The beast photoshopped into alleys, barns, even shopping malls. It should weaken the legend, this descent into parody. Yet the opposite occurs, for even in laughter, the name lingers. Jokes keep the monster alive as surely as screams. Once a creature is in the bloodstream of culture, it cannot be exorcised. Not by scientists, not by skeptics, not by mockery. In this way, the Chupacabra joins a pantheon of global cryptids: Bigfoot, Nessie, Mothman. Each inhabits the border between fact and faith, proof and imagination. Each thrives not on evidence, but on repetition. What sets the Chupacabra apart is its youth. Born in 1995, it carries the fresh scent of modernity, the mark of an age saturated with cameras, satellites, and global media. It is not a relic of oral tradition, but a creature raised in the glare of newsprint and television. It is the first monster to go viral. The internet accelerates its spread. Videos of hairless animals, mangy coyotes, strange hybrids circulate endlessly. Some are hoaxes, crafted for clicks. Others are genuine corpses of the sick and dying. None matter. The captions do the work. Chupacabra caught on film. The words shape perception, and perception shapes truth. For those who want to believe, the pixelated blur is enough. For those who do not, nothing will suffice. Meanwhile, folklorists note the deeper resonance. The Chupacabra, they argue, is not just a monster, but a symbol of globalization itself. A myth that crosses languages, continents, borders, adapting as it goes. It is not bound to Puerto Rico, nor to goats alone. It is fluid, borderless, a reflection of the very age that birthed it. Where earlier monsters were tied to valleys, rivers, caves, the Chupacabra belongs everywhere and nowhere. Yet for all its adaptability, the hunger at its core remains constant. Stories always return to the bloodless bodies, the puncture wounds, the silence of the kill. In Argentina, it is cattle. In Chile, sheep. In Texas, chickens and coyotes. The shape changes, the setting shifts, but the horror repeats. Like a ritual, the myth demands blood, and in every retelling, it drinks anew. Some scholars compare it to the vampire, a modern descendant of an ancient fear. But the Chupacabra is not elegant, not aristocratic. It does not glide through castles in silk. It crouches in corrals, skulks along ditches, stinks of mange and dust. It is a vampire of the soil, rough, feral, born of sweat and toil. That earthbound quality gives it power. It is not distant myth but daily dread, a monster that stalks not castles but backyards. Others link it to social anxieties. In Puerto Rico, it reflects distrust of US presence and hidden experiments. In Mexico, it embodies fear of disease and poverty. In the United States, it mirrors anxieties about borders, invasions, and contamination. Wherever it appears, it borrows the fears already present, wearing them like a second skin. And so, the Chupacabra is both local and global, both ancient and modern. It is at once a joke told on late-night television, and a curse whispered in candlelit kitchens. It is a meme on a glowing screen, and a dread in the hearts of farmers burying their goats. Its existence in the physical world may be doubtful, but in the cultural one, it is undeniable. Even those who deny it cannot escape its presence. Scientists, weary of testing mangy carcasses, confess frustration. No matter how many coyotes they identify, more arrive. No matter how many explanations they offer, more stories sprout. The Chupacabra thrives on dismissal. Each debunking becomes another verse in its song, another heartbeat in its undead pulse. And still, the eyes of believers burn with conviction. They remember the first killings in Puerto Rico, the fields littered with drained sheep. They recall the testimony of Madeline Tolentino, the glowing eyes, the spines. They hear the rumors from Chile, from Argentina, from Texas. How can all the stories be lies? How can so many carcasses be coincidence? The scientists can test bodies, but they cannot test belief. And belief, once lit, does not extinguish. Perhaps that is why the Chupacabra has outlived its doubters. It was born not from the earth, but from a story. And stories do not die. They adapt, they multiply, they wear new skins. Just as the Chupacabra shifts from reptile to dog, from monster to meme, the legend itself shifts form, always alive, always hungry. And in the end, that is its truest habitat. Not corrals or caves, not deserts or islands, but the human mind. The Chupacabra belongs to thought, to fear, to rumor. It thrives in the gaps between certainty and doubt. And those gaps are endless, so the monster walks on. Through fields and headlines, through laughter and dread. It walks through laboratories that deny it, and through villages that swear by it. It walks through jokes, through sketches, through the bright light of cartoons, and it walks still in the night, where animals stir uneasily, where silence hangs too heavy, where the faint rustle of leaves might yet be the approach of hunger. The Chupacabra is not only a beast, it is a thought that refuses to die, a shadow that cannot be banished, a mirror that shows us not what is, but what we fear might be. Legends do not die, they endure, feeding on silence, on fear, on the places where truth cannot reach. The Chupacabra, born in Puerto Rican shadows in 1995, has long since outgrown its birthplace. What began with 8 goats lying bloodless in their pen has become a creature that stalks continents, headlines, and imaginations. It is no longer an intruder of corrals alone. It is a phantom threaded through the fabric of the modern world. The hunger at its core has never changed. Always the same story. The drained carcass, the puncture wounds, the quiet too deep to be natural. Always the same unease, that something came in the night and took more than flesh. And yet, around that core, the body of the beast has twisted and shifted. To some, it is reptilian, red-eyed, crowned with spines. To others, it is canine, hairless and limping, a scavenger gone feral. In one country it is alien, in another diseased, in a third a phantom from folklore reborn. The forms contradict, but the legend survives precisely because of that contradiction. To have many faces is to never be unmasked. Science has tried to strangle it with certainty. Coyotes with mange, DNA tests, necropsies, each offered as the coffin nail that should silence the tale. Yet each denial only strengthens the legend. Believers insist science cannot measure dread, cannot dissect conviction, cannot explain away the goats lying stiff in their pens. And so, science becomes not the slayer of the Chupacabra, but its unwilling accomplice, feeding the suspicion that truth is being hidden. The creature thrives in this space between denial and belief. For every skeptic who names it dog, there is a farmer who buries drained chickens. For every laboratory that prints coyote, there is a child who dreams of red eyes at the window. Truth fractures, but hunger unites. The Chupacabra drinks from the divide, fattened by argument, immortalized by doubt. It is not the first blood drinker to haunt human memory. Vampires, strigoi, lamie, aswangs, sigbins, all speak of the same dread, the unseen predator that takes the essence of life. The Chupacabra is their heir, not in castles or crypts, but in corrals and ditches. It is the vampire of the people, a beast of fields and dust, born not of aristocracy, but of poverty, not of cloaked figures, but of sweat-stained farmers staring at their losses by lantern light. And like all monsters, it reflects its time. In Puerto Rico, it mirrored suspicion of secret experiments, foreign powers, invisible threats. In Mexico, it embodied disease and decay, the way even the familiar could betray. In the United States, it mirrored fears of invasion, of borders violated, of contamination creeping across fences. Each society saw itself in the eyes of the Chupacabra, and in that mirror, it recognized its own hunger, its own unease. Yet the monster has escaped even these meanings. It has become something larger, a creature that belongs to culture itself. It exists in late-night television jokes, in internet memes, in taxidermy displays that attract tourists. It exists in whispered warnings passed to children, in frightened calls to radio hosts, in shaky videos replayed until the pixels themselves feel haunted. It exists not because of proof, but because of presence. Wherever its name is spoken, it draws breath. And so, the Chupacabra stands as the first great monster of the global age, not confined to one valley, one village, one river, but everywhere at once, carried on wires and signals, multiplying in pixels and print. It belongs to Puerto Rico, yes, but also to Chile, Argentina, Texas, Spain, the Philippines, Russia, a borderless phantom for a borderless world. It is easy to dismiss it as invention, hysteria, misidentification, but dismissal does not erase it. The monster persists because it fills a void. The void left by unexplained deaths, by mistrust of authority, by the gnawing hunger for mystery in a world flooded with facts. The Chupacabra offers what reality cannot, a story that makes sense of senseless loss, a name to give the silence, a shape to give the fear. And perhaps that is the truest horror. Not that a reptile stalks our fields, nor that coyotes turn vampire in sickness. The true horror is that belief itself drinks deeper than any fangs, that once a monster is spoken, it becomes real, not in flesh, but in mind. And minds are a pasture that never runs empty. So the Chupacabra endures, in corrals and cartoons, in nightmares and news reports, in the laughter of skeptics and the prayers of believers. It endures because hunger endures, the hunger for life, for certainty, for mystery. And as long as there are goats in fields and shadows in night and whispers that the silence is too heavy, the Chupacabra will walk among us. It was born in blood. It will die in none. Legends end the way rivers do, not with disappearance, but with merging into greater waters. The Chupacabra, though scarcely 3 decades old, now flows into that ancient current of blood drinkers, night stalkers, and phantoms that have haunted humanity since fire first pushed back the dark. In Europe, peasants once whispered of vampires rising from graves, drinking cattle dry beneath the moon. In Asia, the Aswang prowled villages, long tongue unfurling to drain life from sleeping animals and children. In Africa, spirits in jackal shape were said to bleed goats in silence. And in the Americas, long before the name Chupacabra was spoken, tribes told of creatures lurking in jungles and deserts, things that fed on essence rather than flesh. The goat sucker of Puerto Rico is only the latest name given to an old appetite. Its form may shift, reptile, coyote, hybrid, phantom, but its hunger is ancient, familiar, eternal. It carries within it not just the fears of 1995, but the weight of every whisper ever spoken about things that come in the night to feed. And perhaps that is why it endures, even now. Because beneath the rational world, beneath the glare of science and the clamour of headlines, the old fears never left us. We still dread the unexplained cry in the night, the sudden silence of animals, the absence of blood where it should be. The Chupacabra reminds us that no matter how much light we pour into the dark, there will always be shadows thick enough to conceal teeth. The monster has become a ritual, an inheritance. Parents in Puerto Rico tell their children to be wary of the fields after sundown. Ranchers in Texas glance twice at any strange carcass. On the internet, photographs circulate, grainy and uncertain, sparking debates that echo the same arguments made 20 years before. The details blur, but the rhythm repeats. Discovery, fear, denial, belief. Again and again, as though the legend itself is feeding not just on goats, but on the endless cycle of human imagination. And imagination is inexhaustible. It is why a diseased coyote can become a vampire in the eyes of a grieving farmer. It is why a movie alien can bleed into memory until it feels like truth. It is why the Chupacabra, though unproven, remains as real to the world as any predator with claws and fangs. Proof is fragile, belief is iron. Perhaps then, the Chupacabra is not a mistake of the mind, but a necessity of the soul. It gathers our suspicions, our grief, our mistrust of authority, and gives them a body to stalk. It allows us to name our helplessness, to imagine our fears as something tangible that can at least be cursed, fought, or mocked. In its teeth and spines, we see not only horror, but order. For better to fear a monster than to accept randomness. Better to face a predator than to admit the universe is indifferent. Still, the legend carries danger. Fear curdles into paranoia, neighbors accused, governments blamed, strangers distrusted. A dead goat becomes not just loss, but evidence of conspiracy. The Chupacabra is not innocent. It devours not only animals, but trust, leaving communities more fractured than before. In this sense, it is a parasite not of flesh, but of society, feeding on cracks already present and widening them until they bleed. And yet, for all the suspicion, there is also wonder. The Chupacabra reminds us that the world is still wild, still strange, still haunted. In an age when satellites map mountains and cameras guard every corner, the thought that something might still walk unseen in the night is almost a relief. It means mystery remains. It means the dark is not yet conquered. So the Chupacabra endures, as shadow in the corral, as meme on the screen, as whisper in the kitchen, as joke on late-night television. It wears many skins, but beneath them all, it is the same hunger, the same silence, the same reminder that belief is stronger than proof. And when the wind rattles the corrugated roofs of Puerto Rican farms, when coyotes cry in the deserts of Texas, when chickens fall silent in Chilean coops, the old unease stirs again. Farmers glance at their fences. Children shiver in their beds. And somewhere, in imagination if not in flesh, the Chupacabra moves, red eyes burning, claws flexing, thirst unquenched. It has been called a myth, a hoax, a mistake. But to those who have stood over drained bodies in the cold dawn, it is real enough. And to the rest of us, it is real in another way, as real as any monster ever told. For legends are not measured in blood, but in how long their shadows linger. And the shadow of the Chupacabra is long. It stretches from Puerto Rico to the world, from 1995 to now, from carcasses in fields to stories told around glowing screens. It stretches forward still, into nights yet to come, into corrals yet to be emptied, into dreams yet to be disturbed. For the Chupacabra is not finished. It never will be. It was born in blood, baptized in silence, raised in contradiction. It feeds on fear, on suspicion, on imagination. It will walk as long as hunger walks, as long as stories are told, as long as the night holds mysteries, no dawn can banish. The goats may change, the farms may change, the faces of the believers may change, but the hunger does not. The Chupacabra waits.